Rain tapped softly against the glass of the quiet living room window. Inside, Emily sat frozen, her thumb hovering over the glowing screen. She typed a long, desperate explanation, deleted it, then typed again. Her hand shook. Finally, she backspaced everything and wrote just 3 words. "No, I can't." She tossed the phone onto the cushion and buried her face in her hands, letting out a heavy, trembling sigh. Emily pushed open the screen door, the rusty hinges groaning in protest as she stepped out onto the porch. Her heart was still pounding against her ribs. The cool air hit her face, but it did nothing to cool down the burning feeling of guilt in her chest. In the corner, her grandfather sat in his favorite wooden rocking chair. He was slowly peeling a red apple, the small knife moving in a steady, rhythmic circle. A long, unbroken strip of red skin hung from the fruit. He looked like a statue of peace amidst Emily's internal storm. Emily began to pace back and forth on the wooden floorboards, her footsteps heavy and fast. She couldn't hold it in anymore. "I am a terrible friend," she said, her voice shaking. "Sarah needed my help moving this weekend, but I said no. I just need to rest." She threw her hands up in frustration, turning to face him. "She's going to hate me. She was counting on me and I let her down. I'm the villain in her story now." She stopped and looked at the old man, waiting for him to scold her or tell her she was being selfish. But Grandpa didn't stop peeling his apple. He didn't look up. He simply let the silence fill the space between them, allowing Emily to hear the weight of her own words. He wasn't ignoring her. He was giving her room to breathe. After a long moment, Grandpa finally set the apple down on the small porch table. He didn't look at Emily immediately. Instead, he lifted a weathered finger and pointed toward the white picket fence that surrounded his prized rose garden at the edge of the yard. "Emily," he spoke, his voice low and steady. "Look at that fence. What is it doing?" "It's just standing there," she replied, wiping a tear from her cheek, confused by the sudden change of topic. "It surrounds the flowers." "Exactly," Grandpa nodded slowly. "To those delicate roses inside, that fence is a hero. It is a guardian. It creates a safe space for them to grow, to bloom, and to breathe without fear of being trampled." He paused, letting the image sink in, then turned to look her deep in the eyes. "But think about the hungry deer that wander out from the forest. To them, that fence is not a hero. To the deer, that fence is a villain. It is a cruel barrier. It is the bad guy that denies them the free meal they feel entitled to." Emily stood frozen. The absurdity of comparing her friendship to a garden fence caught her off guard, but the meaning behind it struck her with unexpected force. "Setting boundaries is exactly like building that fence," Grandpa explained, his tone gentle but firm. "When you told Sarah you couldn't help, you were simply closing the gate. She is upset, not because you are bad, but because she can no longer walk into your garden and take your time and energy whenever she pleases." He picked up a slice of apple and offered it to her. "In her story, right now, you are the villain who said no. And that is okay, because in your story, you are just the gardener, protecting your own peace." For the first time all day, the tight knot in Emily's chest began to loosen. The realization didn't come as a shock, but as a quiet relief. Emily pulled a chair close to the rocking chair and sat down. The storm that had been raging inside her chest finally passed, leaving behind a quiet stillness. She looked down at her phone, resting on the porch table. It no longer looked like a weapon or a ticking time bomb. It was just a phone. She took a sip of warm tea, watching the steam rise and disappear into the cool afternoon air. Beside her, her grandfather continued to watch over his garden, silent and content. From today's short story, we learn a difficult but necessary truth. Sometimes, in order to be the main character in your own life, you have no choice but to play the villain in the story of someone who does not respect your boundaries. We spend so much of our lives terrified of being disliked, afraid that saying no makes us unkind. But if the price of being liked by others is the destruction of your own inner peace, then that price is simply too high. It is not selfish to protect your garden. It is necessary. So, stay calm. Do not be afraid to be the bad guy in their narrative if it means you can finally sleep soundly in yours. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that it is okay to say no. And join us again for our next lesson, where we will explore the healing power of forgiveness.